Hey guys, what's up? I'm Clay, and today I'm going to be ranking the heroes or good guys of the Star Wars universe. I got about 23 or so of these to rank, and it's just a mix of like all the movies, well, not all, but some of the like books or comic books or websites, YouTube, whatever, and just information I could find on some of these people. And I'm gonna rank them based on the power that they have, not necessarily just like force power. There are a lot of Jedi on this list, but there's power in other ways too in the Star Wars universe, and that's why some of these people make this list. And I put them kind of based on that and how strong I feel that they really are, just based on what we know about them. So some of these, it's gonna be like, well, why would you put him on this list? And then some of them are gonna be like, oh yeah, he definitely deserves to be on this list. But remember, this is my opinion, so I'm just putting them, and you might think that some of them deserve a different spot on the list. They don't deserve here at all, but this is where I feel that these people or these characters belong on this list. And like I said, there's about 23 of them, if I counted right. So let's get started. Number 23, and I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but number 23, in my opinion, is Jar Jar Binks. And you might be saying, well, he's like the most useless character in Star Wars, and I can't agree with you, but he does have his moments. I mean, he is responsible for a lot of the bad stuff that happens in Star Wars, but he's also responsible for a lot of the main plots of the good guys that happens too. Like, he helps them get to the Naboo in The Phantom Menace. He helps them find like an army, pretty much, to help fight against the battle droids. And he is a big part of the first movie, whether we like it or not. He is there, and that's why he's number 23 and not somewhere else, because he does have his moments sometimes, even though he is the clumsy goofball character that nobody really likes. My next character on this list, number 22, is C-3PO. And he's on the list because, like Jar Jar, he really can't do much, but when he does do something, it has an impact on either the story, on the characters he's with, or whatever. Like him and R2 were pretty much the main characters that everybody thinks about when they think of Star Wars. They're like, oh yeah, R2-D2, C-3PO. 3PO is a protocol droid, which means he can speak many different languages, which has helped them out of some sticky situations, especially in Return of the Jedi when they're being captured by the Ewoks, and 3PO has to act like they're God, and he can communicate with them, so that helps them there. And then there's some other instances throughout the Star Wars universe in which he uses his programming to his advantage, whether it be knowing how to fix something or how to get out of a certain situation. So he's not the last person on this list, but he's not down near the front either, just because of his capabilities of what he can physically do, and because he is a droid, he's closer up to the end of this list. Number 21 would be Madame Jocasta Nu, and a lot of people would probably be saying, like, who is that? Why is she on this list? What has she done? But if you think about it, she's the guardian of all the Jedi secrets in the library. She has to know who can come in, who can't. She is a Jedi Master, if you didn't know that. Or a Jedi. I don't really know if she's a Master or not, but she is a Jedi. She does have a lightsaber. She has the Force. She has the ability to communicate with the other Jedi and know what they're looking for. She is naive, but in Darth Vader comics, from what I've heard about, she actually, during Order 66, she actually fights against Vader. Or maybe after Order 66 if she survived. But she actually ends up fighting or defending herself against Vader. I don't want to say fighting because I don't think it's a full battle, but she ends up kind of holding her own for a little bit at least, and manages to evade Darth Vader. And anybody that can do that, in my opinion, deserves a spot on this list. And she might not be, a main character that everybody thinks about, but she is a Jedi, so you do have to take that into account. And I wish we could have got to see more of that, like during Revenge of the Sith, when Order 66 takes place. We could see her do either protect the younglings or help out at the Jedi Temple and try and fight back. We don't really see any of those scenes because it would have been a long movie, but that still would have been cool to see. Number 20 on my list, and this goes to the movie Rogue One, is the droid K2SO. And I put him at 22, or at number 20, because he is kind of like C-3PO, where he is like a droid, but he does have a bigger role than 3PO, I feel, at least within the main plot of the movie. He helps them get in to find the Death Star plans. He defends them. He can use a gun, unlike 3PO. And he was a reprogrammed Imperial droid, which means he can walk into the Imperial bases without needing a disguise, because they just think it's another one of their droids. And so that works to their advantage in Rogue One. If you've watched it, they walk into the Imperial station, and Jyn Erso and Cassian are in disguises, and K2 is just by himself because he looks just like the other Imperial droids there. So that's one advantage to his being there, and that's why he's at number 20 on this list. Now, number 19 might get a lot of heat again because he's not higher up on the list, but it's Han Solo, and you have to take into account that he is a rebel leader. He's a general, or a captain, I guess, in Empire. He helps defeat the Empire, by blowing up the shield in Return of the Jedi, or helping Luke in the Death Star battle in A New Hope. And obviously with The Force Awakens, where he helps them try and track down Starkiller Base and try and track down Kylo Ren to try to bring him back to the good side. And so because he is limited in his powers, as to he's not a Force user, and so he doesn't have that power, but he is a good fighter. He's a smuggler. He knows what he's doing. That's why he's at 19 and not higher up. But I take nothing away from Han Solo. He is probably one of the most iconic characters in Star Wars. So we'll move on to number 18, which I have the droid BB-8 from the newer series of Star Wars movies. BB-8 is kind of like the R2-D2 of the new series, where he can do a lot more than R2. He can they can communicate with him. He has part of the map to Luke Skywalker in The Force Awakens. He's trusted enough to carry that, and he does end up kind of playing a role in the movie as to he's helping Poe Dameron in the X-Wing, because he's his R2-D2, so he can do that. And then he ends up, I don't want to say like he actually fights somebody, because he really doesn't, but he can defend himself better than some other droids that we see in this series. Number 17, we're going to go back to the prequels, and we're going to talk about a Jedi Master, Plo Koon, who, in my opinion, we didn't get to see a lot of, but because of the Clone Wars series, we do see a lot of that ability that we didn't get to see in the movies, and so we can see what he's made of. He can breathe in outer space without needing a helmet for a short period of time, but still long enough, and we see that in an episode. He is a Jedi Master, and he's the one that brought in Ahsoka into the Jedi Temple, and like as a youngling, and so in a way he's kind of responsible for Ahsoka's training and becoming a Jedi and everything else. And that's a big part of the Clone Wars series, is Ahsoka and Anakin and the Jedi and all that during all the battles and stuff. So because he was able to bring her in and train, or at least allow her to start training as a Jedi, he had a big role in that. And Plo Koon does end up getting killed during Order 66, which sucks, but because we get to see him more in the Clone Wars, that's why I was able to put him on this list, because we can see his Force abilities. We can see that he is a Jedi Master, so he does have more abilities than just like a non-council member, and that's why he's part of the council. But at the same time, he's not like one of the greatest. We never see him do anything like spectacular. We don't see him use a hologram or a Force ghost or anything when he dies, so he probably wasn't that strong with the Force, but he was strong enough to where he was a member of the Jedi Council. Number 16 is R2-D2. And again, like BB-8, he can do a lot of, opening doors, getting people out of situations. He can fight. We've seen him in Clone Wars fighting against another droid, using electronics or whatever. He can fly. He survives a lot through the series, being shot at, being blown up, just whatever, and he still manages to survive. And he's trusted enough by Princess Leia, or at least she thinks it's a good idea, to hide the plans for the Death Star in him and send him down to find Obi-Wan Kenobi. And once he gets set on that mission, that's all he thinks about until he finds Obi-Wan on Tatooine. And the fact that Leia gave it to R2 and not 3PO should tell you something about the fact that she trusts R2, the little astromech droid, rather than C-3PO, the protocol droid. I don't know why. Maybe she just, he was the closest one and she just gave it to him. But I think there was a bigger meaning behind why she gave it to R2. And he is a big part, like I said, of the movies. Like I said, with 3PO, when people think of Star Wars, they're like, oh yeah, R2, D2, C-3PO, Darth Vader, Luke, and all of them. So he is an iconic character. He can get out of situations, and that's why he made number 16 on this list. Now, number 15 is BB-8's counterpart in Poe Dameron. He is probably, other than like Luke in the original trilogy, he is probably the best pilot that the Resistance currently has. We've seen him do some pretty awesome stuff as a pilot. You know, he helps Finn, or I guess Finn would help him escape, but at the same time he does fly a TIE fighter against the Empire, or sorry, the First Order in the Force Awakens when they're escaping. He gives the plans to BB-8. He's responsible for helping to destroy Starkiller Base, and he is just one of the main people in the newer series of Star Wars who helps fight against the First Order, and that's why he made number 15 on this list. Number 14 is Jedi Master Kit Fisto, and again, like Plo Koon, we didn't get to see much of him in action in the actual movies, and his series kind of came in the Clone Wars, where he was training with his Padawan Nadar Veb, who ends up getting killed by Grievous, but he takes on General Grievous, who is, you know, he's no one to take lightly. He is trained in the Jedi arts. He knows how to use lightsabers. He has 4 of them, and the fact that Kit Fisto takes him on and battles him there. We see him in Attack of the Clones during the Battle of Geonosis. We see him do some stuff there, and he's one of the Jedi Masters that goes with Mace Windu to take on Emperor Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith, and he does get killed right away, but still he is... Only 3 people went with Mace Windu, and it's either Mace Windu didn't trust anybody else, or everybody else was just gone and scattered throughout the galaxy, so that was all that was left. But I think he took 3 people that he trusted, and all of them were Jedi Council members, and so with Kit Fisto being one of those, and the fact that we get to see him more often in the Clone Wars really helped me to be able to place him on this list, and I've always liked Kit Fisto. So that's why he's at number 14 on this list. Number 13 is another character who we don't get to see a lot of throughout the series, and there's going to be a lot of those in this video. This is Jedi Master Quinlan Vos. We see him a little bit in the Clone Wars, and we do know, at least from either articles or comic books or whatever, that he is one of the Jedi that does survive Order 66. And I don't really know exactly what happens to him after that, but he does survive, and it's because he doesn't trust the clones, so he uses an army of just regular people that he finds that want to, you know, help him fight. And so because he doesn't use clones, he can't be betrayed by clones, and that's why he's able to survive. And the fact that he didn't trust the clones and he thought there was something bigger going on is why he makes it at number 13 on this list. We do get to see some of the stuff he can do in the Clone Wars, but we don't get to see a lot of it, and we don't really see what happens to him after the Clone Wars, at least that I'm aware of, or after Revenge of the Sith. But Quinlan Vos is one of those people that it's like, he's, you know, he's not a main character. We never really see him, but he is strong with the Force, and he is a strong Jedi Master, and so that's why he's at number 13 on this list. Now, right below him, we go back to the movie Rogue One, where we get the Force-sensitive former Guardian of the Whills in Chirrut Îmwe, who, he's blind, but he has such a connection with the Force that he is actually probably the main source for them getting the Death Star plans in Rogue One, because without him being able to use the Force and manipulate everything around him so that he could make it safely to the switch to turn it on to where they could make communications and tell them to blast the shield, he had to be strong with the Force. Nobody can just, you know, use the Force. It's not something anybody could do. he had to have that ability, and the fact that he did, and he could, even though he's blind, he could still fight, he could still manipulate the Force like that. That's one of the reasons he's on this list at number 12. So number 11 is a character we got introduced to in The Force Awakens, and it's Maz Kanata, who owns a castle on Takodana, and she's responsible for giving Rey Luke's lightsaber, and she's been around for a long time. She said she's seen the Empire, she's seen the First Order, she's seen the Jedi, so she's been around for a long time. And she might not look like a lot, but she does have the ability to see into people's eyes and know what they're feeling. And the fact that she could keep Luke's lightsaber hidden without anybody knowing that it was there. How she got it, I don't know. But nobody knew it was there, and really, we do see her in battle in The Last Jedi, and she's fighting, she's shooting stormtroopers or whatever, and she's got skills. So she's not just like another character that they threw in and it's like, oh, she's not gonna have a major role, but she knows people, she knows her way around the galaxy. She can help if they were able to, bring her in to fight the battle against the First Order. And so that's why she's at number 11 on this list. So Princess Leia is number 10, and she's not higher up because she's never really, other than being the main or a main part of the original trilogy and now being with The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, she is a main character, but we never really see her, other than in The Last Jedi, she never has or harnesses that Force power that's in her blood. And so you can't really, yes, she's a good battle strategy leader, and she's a good general in the Resistance, but she's not one of the strongest or best characters in terms of power and what they've accomplished throughout the series. I do love Leia, and rest in peace Carrie Fisher, but I just don't think that she's, and I don't know if we're going to see more in episode 9, but what we've seen, I'm not taking anything away from her, and that's why she's number 10 rather than somewhere, up in the 20s or whatever. But she's number 10 and not like in the top 5 because she doesn't have that power, or she doesn't let it show until The Last Jedi when she's out in space. So number 9 is Rey, and you might be saying, well, why are you putting her at number 9? She's probably the main plot of the new saga of Star Wars, and I agree, but from what we've seen so far, all she's really done is battle against Kylo Ren and hold her own, trained with Luke, and then came back and fought against Kylo Ren again and helped him kind of escape, and then she helps the Resistance escape on Crate by moving the rocks and stuff. So really, we haven't seen her big break yet, but she is a good pilot. She knows her stuff. She knows how to fix the Millennium Falcon, and she was so good that Han Solo was even thinking about hiring her as his help, but then after he died, she became the pilot with Chewbacca as her co-pilot, or vice versa, whichever way you want to look at it. But she is good. She does have the Force. She is learning her way with the Jedi arts and becoming a Jedi, but as of right now, from what we've seen, I don't think she is one of the strongest people on the good side of things. with that, we'll move on to number 8, which is her co-pilot, Chewbacca. Now, you gotta think, he's been around for a very long time. I think they said in Solo he was like 150, something like that. And that was before New Hope happened. We see him in Revenge of the Sith, and then again in A New Hope, and so on. And Solo, we find out that he is older, so he has been around for a while. He does have the bowcaster, which is pretty much like a crossbow, but shoots blasts rather than arrows. And so it's a lot stronger than a regular blaster, and it's definitely a lot stronger than a crossbow. We've seen him be responsible for a lot of the main plots, whether it be taking over an AT-AT, or sorry, an AT-ST, or helping fight, or just using his brute strength that he has as a Wookiee and being so big and being a main character is what puts him at number 8 on the list. And again, he's not higher up because we don't really see him, you know, he can't use the Force or anything, so, but because he's a main character and he does have some power and he can do a lot more than some of the other characters on this list, and the fact that he's been shot and he's still alive and everything else is what puts him here. So number 7, we're going back to the Clone Wars TV series, and we're going to talk about Ahsoka Tano, who's Anakin Skywalker's apprentice in the Clone Wars. And I put her on this list, and I put her at 7 because she's, at least in the Clone Wars, we do see her journey as to becoming an actual Jedi, and where she gets her powers, and she can learn to harness the Force in many ways, and she does become strong with the Force. And in her book, or the book about her called Ahsoka, she battles against Darth Maul, and she's able to hold her own there, and then she goes on some other journey. She survives Order 66, so she escapes and then tries to hide out from the Empire, and then other stuff happens. But then we see her again in Rebels, where she's a main plot, I guess. I've only seen Rebels a couple times, but she does end up fighting against Darth Vader. And like I said before, anybody that can fight against Vader and at least hold their own, because I'm such a Vader fan, I feel like that earns them a spot on this list. And that's why she's at 7 and not closer to the front. But next is one of my favorite characters, and that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's able to come back as a Force ghost. He's responsible for the training of Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker. He's a main plot of the prequel trilogy. He's so strong with the Force that he's one of only a few people that actually survive Order 66. And you might say it's because of the help of Yoda or whatever, but he does watch over Luke and make sure Luke's okay until the point at which he's ready to become a Jedi. He is responsible for the Millennium Falcon being allowed to leave the Death Star in A New Hope. He turns off the tractor beam, and he battles against Vader, where he then sacrifices himself to save Luke. And again, with the Vader thing, you know, he's holding his own as an older Jedi against Darth Vader. I mean, Vader's also older, but you still have to think that he is that powerful, where we've seen Vader just with, like, the Force, he's able to choke people. But the fact that he beats Anakin in Revenge of the Sith and holds his own against Vader in A New Hope, and then goes on to help train Luke with Yoda as a Force ghost, that's what puts him at number 6 on this list. Number 5 is Obi-Wan's old master, Qui-Gon Jinn, who unfortunately gets killed in The Phantom Menace. But we do see him come back as a Force ghost in the Clone Wars. At least, I don't remember if it was more than once, but at least one time we see him come back as a Force ghost. And we didn't get to see much of Qui-Gon in The Phantom Menace, but we do know that based on other source material and other canon articles or whatever, that Qui-Gon was a powerful Jedi, and he would have had a spot on the Jedi Council had he followed the rules of what the Council expects in a Jedi Master. And because he knew about the corruption in the Senate, or at least believed it, and he trained under Count Dooku, and he was also responsible for finding Anakin, but he knew about the corruption in the Senate, and that's why he didn't want to join the Council. And that's why they didn't want him on the Council, because he didn't agree with their methods and all that, because he knew something was going on, but couldn't do anything about it. He trains Obi-Wan, who is responsible for a lot in the series, and unfortunately we didn't get to see him battle or use his powers a lot more, but he does fight against Darth Maul, who at that time was a powerful Sith, but he got outsmarted by Obi-Wan. But he does hold his own against Darth Maul, and we see different parts where he uses mind tricks, or tries to, and he knows his way around a lightsaber. So that's why he's at number 5, and he's not 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now 4 is Anakin Skywalker pre-Darth Vader, because he was, or at least they thought he was, according to the prophecy, he was the chosen one, and Anakin was a strong Jedi. Yeah, he became evil in the end, but technically his intentions were pure in becoming a Sith. He was trying to save the one that he loved, which was Padme, but by doing so, he also had to turn his back on everything he had worked so hard to obtain. And so Anakin is number 4 because he is, I mean, he does become Darth Vader, and I love Darth Vader, but he is a strong Jedi. We've seen how he is as a pilot. We've seen him do some amazing things in the Clone Wars. We've seen him do a lot in the prequel trilogy. And he's the father of Luke Skywalker, who's one of the main characters of Star Wars, and so that in itself allows him a spot on this list. But he is really powerful, and that's why Emperor Palpatine wanted him as his apprentice. If he could manipulate him in the right way, he knew that he would be a strong asset, but unfortunately his loss to Obi-Wan made him weaker than he originally was. But had he not lost to Obi-Wan, and had he gone on to be a Sith as Anakin, he may have been a lot more powerful, and Palpatine may have been overthrown, and Anakin would have been the Emperor. But overall, I mean, he's a skilled warrior, he's a great pilot, he's strong with the Force. We see him come back as a Force ghost. After being Darth Vader for so many years, he is able to harness that good energy again and come back as a Force ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi. So that shows you that there was still good in him, Padme said. So number 3 is his son Luke, who we all know is probably the most iconic character in Star Wars ever. But again, he's a great warrior now, a great pilot. He's very strong with the Force. I mean, we've seen, if you've watched The Last Jedi, we see him use a projection of his younger self. Well, not young, like young, but younger than he was in the movie. And he ends up drawing out Kylo Ren, thinking that he's fighting Luke, when really he's not. But he's on a different planet, and he's able to project himself to the planet Crate, where he ends up distracting Kylo Ren so that they can escape, so that the Resistance can escape. And for him to be able to do that from a different planet without even being there, just using the Force to do it, shows you how powerful he has become between Return of the Jedi and The Last Jedi. Because in that time period, he tried training Jedi, and he tried finding all the old texts and scrolls, and he's had time to really take in the Force and allow it to control his life, and he has become one with the Force. And so that power is what puts him at number 3. But in my opinion, there are still 2 people that are stronger than Luke was. And one of them is number 2 on this list, and that is Master Yoda. He's not number 1, even though he was Grand Master of the Jedi Council, and he is very powerful for being so small. And the fact that he uses a cane to walk, but can use the Force to allow his body to jump around and fight and not need a cane. And we see this in Attack of the Clones. We see it in Revenge of the Sith. We've seen it in the Clone Wars. Every battle he's been. The fact that he can harness the Force to allow his body to do things that he can't do normally is what puts him at number 2, but not number 1, even though we could argue that he is probably stronger than this person at number 1. But in my opinion, I feel because of what we've seen, he's number 2. So number 1 is Mace Windu, and I put him higher than Yoda because we do see he holds his own against Palpatine, and had it not been for Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, he could have killed Palpatine, which would have changed the entire storyline of Star Wars. He is a strong Jedi. He's responsible for the death of Jango Fett. We see him very well in the Clone Wars and in Attack of the Clones. We don't see him that much in Phantom Menace, but we do get to see that power. And the fact that his lightsaber is purple, and he's the only one that has that, is really significant to us as fans. And there's been theories that his lightsaber is purple because when he fights, he harnesses both sides of the Force, and that's why he uses a purple kyber crystal, because he's good with blue and he's got that evil with the red. And we see that when he's fighting against Palpatine and he's an unarmed prisoner and he's willing to kill him, even though it's not the Jedi way, because he's too dangerous to be kept alive, in his words. We do see him harness both sides of the Force, even if we think we don't. And the fact that he does that when he fights, and he has a unique fighting style, and he's able to harness both sides of the Force and use that energy and that power to fight, that's what I think makes him stronger than Yoda, even though Yoda can use the Force to manipulate his body. Mace Windu harnesses both sides of the Force, and so that's why he is number 1 on my list as probably the strongest hero or good guy in the Star Wars universe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun thinking of these characters to put on this list, and a lot of fun putting them where I put them and trying to reason out why they deserve to be there, and doing some research for this. I learned a lot of some of the characters that I didn't really already know, so that's always good to learn something new about your favorite subject. If you guys want to see more ranking videos like this, let us know in the comments below. Steven has one up about ranking the Marvel heroes, so check that video out, and I'll be doing more like this. So I'll see you guys next time. May the Force be with you.